Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the special business meeting for the District of Squamish for Tuesday, February 16th. We are meeting today on the traditional territory of the Squamish Nation. Motion to adopt the agenda. Oh, hold on a second. Roland started sharing the screen and my view got can't see anyone. Great. All right. Motion to approve the agenda. Moved by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Herford. Any opposed? Motion carries. Ministerial Order M192, that the district is ensuring openness, transparency, accessibility, and accountability at this meeting by the following means. The meeting is being live streamed. A video of this meeting will be available on the district's website for viewing on an on-demand basis. The meeting is open to the public for electronic participation. Moved by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Stoner. Any opposed? Motion carries. We are meeting electronically, so in case you haven't memorized these, Council, just to let me know when you connect or disconnect from the meeting so that this can be recorded in the minutes. To identify yourself, if you're on video, simply raise your hand if you wish to speak. If you're by audio only, please just say chair. You're not required to state a vote in favor. You're only required to state a nay vote. Council members will put their telephone and computer on mute unless they are speaking. That goes for staff as well. Council members will be involved in and participate in the meeting. If you're having any difficulties with technology, please text our corporate officer. And if the technical challenges on our side, we'll recess for up to 10 minutes to get everything sorted out. Okay, so we don't have a long agenda this afternoon in the open. The big piece of work is our 2021 budget and 5-year financial plan. And so Ms. Moore is here, our communications manager, and Mr. Russell, our senior financial analyst, to go over the feedback we received from the public and talk about any budget next steps. I'll hand it over to you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thank you. I'm Christina Moore, Director of...
I can't hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
I can't hear. Hold on a second, Ms. Moore. Council, you can hear? Okay, I can't hear in council chambers, so just a second.
It may be worth mentioning, I can't see you either, Mayor Elliott. I don't know if that's just me.
Again?
I can.
I can see Karen.
Okay, that's just me. It's just the.
Christina, can you say something?
Hi, I'm here.
Oh, there we go. I can see now.
See what happens when we switch technology.
No, so I just changed. Someone had switched audio.
Nice haircut, Councilor Pegtail.
Yeah.
Okay, try again, Christina.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Okay. All right. We're going to recess for a few minutes here just to get IT to help us solve this problem. So, Council, sorry about that. We'll come back at 10 past. Try again. We're good. Okay, once more with dealing. 2021 budget and 5-year financial plan. I will turn it over to Ms. Moore and Mr. Russell.
Thank you, Mayor Elliott. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm Christina Moore, Director of Communications for the District of Squamish. As Mayor Elliott mentioned, I'm here today to talk about public feedback that has been received through the budget process. I just have a few slides to share to provide an overview before opening it up to Council discussion on any of the themes that you heard from the public. Mr. Russell is going to be advancing my slides, so I will ask him to start the presentation and move to the next slide, please. Thank you. So this slide provides an overview of some of the work we have done to inform the community about the budget, about the process, and invite feedback throughout the length of time. The survey, as you recall, was took place in the fall. I was in front of council at the end of November, November 24th, with a summary of the responses from that survey. And the reports are all available on our website that have been available for the public. Squamish.ca/budget has been our home for the budget workshops, for all of the materials that have been posted as we have gone through the process. And all of our promotional campaign sharing information about the budget has directed to this particular website. I'll talk a little bit on the next slide about some of the visits that we've had to that site. Of course, with COVID restrictions, online has been our primary focus this year. We did create printed budget packages for those who wished to have a hard copy, but we didn't have the benefit this year of having in-person conversations as we have in previous years. We did host a public information meeting on January 26th that was virtual, and we have been able to share those, the presentation and the questions and answer, the question and answer period from that meeting in the days following, so that anyone who was unable to attend that night was able to view it at a later date. And the local media, I'd like to note, have also been really helpful in covering the budget and a number of items that have been proposed. So we appreciate their helping to bring transparency to the items. Next slide, please, Roland. So this slide shows the level of participation we received over the few months. Obviously, as mentioned, favoring the online options. The average time spent on the tool, line number 3, was about just over 5 minutes, actually more about 5 minutes and 51 seconds, so close to 6 minutes. The tool was launched in January once all of the workshops had taken place, and it provides an opportunity for the public to click through the budget without combing through all of the spreadsheets that we have that council has seen throughout the workshops. So we've had 500 views of that tool, and again, close to about 6 minutes spent with the tool for each view. So hopefully that has provided a good opportunity for people to get the sense of what was proposed. At the public information night as well, it wasn't exactly certain how many attendees there were, but we could see 15 attendees during the WebEx. And we've had about another 15 to 20 views of the public information night recording following the event. Overall, about 40 views of other budget workshop videos. So by far the online opportunities to look at the budget have been much more popular. And next slide, please, Roland. So attached to this past Thursday's agenda, attached to the agenda package released on Thursday, was a summary of the comments and questions received from the public. The package is also available on our website today for anyone who may not have seen it already. It is at squamish.ca/budget. As you saw in the budget package, the comments ranged across a variety of themes. The range of interests and topics were diverse. This word cloud speaks to some of the feedback that we received. Certainly, if there was one topic that received more feedback than others, it was on the topic of traffic calming and road safety. And without going through all of the comments that are in your package, that is, I will leave it there and pass it over to council for any comments or discussion that you'd like to raise from any of the public comments that you read about in your agenda package.
Anything from council? Councilor Anderson?
you. One of the comments in our package, and it's a quick one, I'll read it out. Concerned that increased tipping fees could result in increased illegal dumping. This is a longstanding concern. I wonder if we may have anybody from our engineering department or otherwise who may answer whether the district keeps something of a logbook so that we have some means of monitoring patterns of activity with respect to illegal dumping. This came up before when we implemented, or the district did several years ago, new policies, and the concern was raised that this might lead to illegal dumping. That is the end of the free dump day. But my question is, and perhaps we staff can come back with this, as to whether we do monitor patterns or volumes of illegal dumping. Thank you.
Mr. Buxton, I saw you appear on the screen.
Yes, the only way we'd be able to do that is through the complaints that come in, and we log those, and we are able to filter those, but I don't know, we would be able to track incidences and complaints. I don't know whether we'd be able to track volumes that are at each incident, but we could certainly track the incidence of illegal tipping complaints.
Thank you. And perhaps it may be clumsy, but so that we can see patterns over time through the means of checking into the logbook. Thank you, Mr. Buxton.
Anything else from the public comment, Council? Yes, Councilor Ford.
Thank you. The upcoming I guess vehicle residence or van dweller report, whatever the title of that's going to be. There's a question around not having a line item specifically for any actions recommended therein, and just thinking about another summer in Squamish and making sure that we are resourced to implement whatever those recommendations are. I just wanted to circle back to that. I thought it was a great point. I want to make sure we don't overlook this one.
Go ahead, Ms. Glenday.
Thank you, through the chair, Mayor Elliott. As indicated before, at this point, we don't have a specific plan and associated funding in terms of the options for the vehicle dwelling. And as we don't budget just in case, there isn't something specific in the budget. As those options come forward and as we implement through the summer, should there be a budget needed, we can do a financial plan amendment. That said, proactively, we have through the BC Restart funding upped the number of bylaw officers as an example, because we know regardless of what we do, that enforcement through COVID and education and compliance through vehicle dwelling will be something that we will be leaning on. So that part of it is taken care of. Anything else would be a financial plan amendment once the work has been completed to indicate what it is we need.
Thank you for that clarity. That makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay. Not seeing any other hands. Thank you, Ms. Moore, for doing all that online engagement. And it's great to see that people spent some time actually looking at the budget tool. I wish that we could spend 5 minutes and 51 seconds, but that's not our job. So, but I'm glad that even people spent that amount of time to look for the things that they're interested in. Appreciate the summary. Over to you, Mr. Ross.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council. We'll advance the slide to the next one, and I will speak to you about some of the changes or updates that you've seen in the package that you have before you. Let's start with the COVID Restart Grant. We added 2 items to the COVID Restart Grant, one for Community Foundation for $50,000, and that is for to allow the Community Foundation to assist assist groups which support people in vulnerable sectors, etc. The other area is Chamber of Commerce, and there is a letter attached to your package today, your agenda package today, which has two requests from the Chamber of Commerce to fund a buy local opportunity and a grant writing opportunity, approximately $50,000 each. In addition to that, on COVID-19 Restart Grant, Economic Development Department received confirmation of a CAN export grant, which was originally aligned with one of their projects. I believe it is the Emerging Sectors project, and therefore, instead of requiring a full $100,000 of grant funding, they will require approximately $50,000 of grant funding. We will reduce the amount coming from the BC COVID Restart Grant by the $50,000 they received from the federal government. And lastly, there was an adjustment to the 2020 expenses. When we estimated the 2020 expenses that were provided to you previously, we summarized the response from the Recreation Department on revenue losses. Unfortunately, we did not include the response on revenue losses associated with parks. So there's some additional revenue losses associated with parks, and those have now been included. As a result of that minor adjustment to the overall amount being charged against the COVID Restart Grant, and there's a slight reduction in the amount that we believe will be available in 2022 as a future provision. There are also some other adjustments that have been made, and I will outline those in just a moment. With respect to the capital plan, we added a project for the Quarter Trail lighting, which is a grant-funded project. The grant resolution 2 include a grant. Resolution 2 include grant-funded project in the financial plan was passed by council earlier this year, and so we have now included that project. Within the special operating projects, there were some minor changes to carry forward amounts. To be fair, engineering have brought forward a number of changes to some projects that they were carrying forward, and those kind of got lost in the pivot to managing the BC Restart Grant. Basically, the information came in at the same time, and it just got misplaced. So that was an oversight on behalf of finance. Engineering has asked for a correction there, and we made that. And lastly, administration is recommending an adjustment to non-discretionary amounts, and that is for an adjustment to victim services expense. We receive a grant from the provincial government, and we're supposed to be a 50-50 match. Given the level of the grant and the level of the funding within protective services, we require an increase in protective services funding of approximately $25,000 to ensure that we stay on side with our matching agreement with the province. We intend to fund that from the protective services provision. Those are the significant changes that we are speaking of at this time. There are some other changes which may have come to light. There were some questions that were raised earlier today or were provided to us by members of council, which we can and will address. I'm going to flip over to the goals, which is this last slide that I have, and simply to say that Our goal today is for council to provide any final direction, and with that, we hope that we will take their final direction. We have received what we believe to be approval for the COVID restart grant spending, the operating and capital special projects, and service level changes. All of those items have been incorporated into the package that you have in front of you. We've outlined a few other pieces that have been incorporated in that package that were not in the package that you would have seen previously at the public engagement. And with no further ado, I am going to stop sharing my screen so we can have a final discussion on any last minute changes that council may wish to make prior to us coming forward with a bylaw representing these values next week.
Thank you, Mr. Russell.
During
Today is a day to wrap up any loose ends, query any final questions, and approve some of the changes that Mr. Russell just mentioned now. And as we said, the bylaw will come forward next week. Yes, go ahead, Mr. Russell.
I just, Mr. Russell, I just wanted to make a comment in addition to this. There is a note, there's an item in your package from a letter from the library board. It is not directly related to the 2021 budget package. It is a request for an adjustment related to 2020 fiscal year and fiscal reporting requirements. And we just simply wanted to make sure the council was aware of this recommendation that's being asked by the library. So it has been included in the package that you received today. But just like to make sure that that's noted. That recommendation is supported by administration, and to that degree, I think it's as much as anything notification to council. We would appreciate it if council would confirm that they are willing to extend the same opportunity with respect to COVID and COVID restart funding in 2020 that they had already agreed to for the library in 2021.
Thank you. So council, regardless of any other questions you might have, if you could please speak to the changes to the BC Restart funds that Mr. Russell spoke to with regard to the chamber and the foundation specifically, and the piece on the library. All right, turn it over to you for questions. Councilor Pengil and then Councilor Stoner.
Thank you. A couple clarifications. The chamber's asking for $50,000 for the buy local and another $50,000 for the grant writing, so $100,000 in total, or they're splitting $50,000 between the two.
It's $100,000.
Okay. So then on the buy local, I see, in the past the chamber's been involved in bcbuylocal.ca and has had those sorts of campaigns. I checked our logo and their logos on their site and so on. So I'm wondering, do we have any information about the effectiveness of that, or what's different and what additional we'll get for this $50,000 beyond the sort of existing buy local work?
Ms. Mulligan's here. Welcome.
Hi, through you, the chair. Hi, yes, Councillor Pettingill. My understanding is that the chamber is wishing to complement the existing Buy Local campaign that the chamber partners in with Buy Local. This will be about communicating the benefit that local businesses bring to the community, as well as raising awareness of local businesses, the products and services that are available, encouraging our residents to buy local, and elevating the profile of Squamish's diverse and eclectic locally owned businesses. So I think there's a combination of general education, awareness building, and promotion of products and services that are available locally that will be part of this programming. I don't have specific data to talk about the effectiveness of other buy local campaigns, but I do believe that our partner, the chamber, does have data that's from the partner regarding the effectiveness.
And do we know how much I assume we've put some funding into this at some point because our logo's on their website and so on. Do we have an understanding of how much we've already invested into this?
We haven't invested anything directly into the Buy Local campaign through economic development. Our work with the Chamber and Buy Local has been primarily just communications of programs, so encouraging citizens to buy local.
Okay, I'm going to think about that for a minute. Thank you.
Councilor Stoner?
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, with regards to the earmarked funding for the community grants, which I imagine would go through the Squamish Community Foundation, I just want to clarify if we've had any conversations with them about their ability to do that. I know we're kind of kicking off a new community enhancement grant process this year, and I believe in our last conversation we actually had some hesitancy around increasing the scope of that through the COVID-19 recovery. So I'm just curious if any conversations have happened there.
Ms. Glendale.
Thank you. Through the mayor, yes, staff have been in direct contact with the executive director and the board of the Community Foundation to ascertain whether or not they wanted the additional funds to disseminate in the community for supporting the vulnerable folks out there during COVID. And they did deliberate and ask quite a few questions. And as long as we are continuing to honor our agreement with them, wherein they can use 10% of that amount for administration purposes, that they're willing to take it on. So that we've confirmed with them.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. And then just a question with regards to the letter from the library. I'm assuming that the revenue shortfall and outstanding COVID-related expenses are equivalent to the amount that they're trying to offset with the security contract. Are those dollars equal? I just saw one end of the equation in the letter.
Mr. Russell?
I will volunteer and answer that question on behalf of Heather Bloom, our director of library. The amount that they requested in the letter reflects their shortfall that they had identified. They have been in contact. They've been working with the finance department with respect to the use of the COVID grant. And so we had a dialogue with them and were able to come back and say, we could not directly fund the library revenue shortfall because it doesn't flow through our books. So this was the amount that they identified there. The amount of savings on the security contract is in fact greater than that. So they did not ask to have all of that difference, which would be a very generous offer on behalf of the district, but which could be made, obviously. They have simply asked for an amount sufficient to cover other losses they had identified.
Thank you for that clarification.
Other questions? Go ahead, Councilor Harper.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Russell, for the clarity on the library piece. I'm just curious. I'm supportive of this move to cover that, but I'm curious about the restart funding and how these are COVID expenses, and is it because of the funds, or what are the limitations there, and how did we get to this solution?
How we reached this solution was due to COVID, and as a result of the COVID grant, areas that have had revenue losses, identifiable revenue losses, those revenue losses would be applicable with respect to the grant. The situation here is that the library generates revenue, I guess it's best to say, through the library's books, so to speak. They don't flow through the district. They flow directly to the library board. And so, as I'm sure has occurred for many charities, as a result of COVID, their revenue streams have been hurt and their revenues are down. So the library experienced that also. They asked us if through the COVID restart grant funding, we would be able to cover their revenue loss that shows up on their side of the books. And we looked at it, kind of bounced it around within finance, and we just couldn't do it. It is not a revenue loss of the district. That would kind of put us offside. So we said that won't work, but there are savings within the budget of the library, which we could provide to the library as a grant, which would offset the revenue loss that they experienced. And those specifically related to savings that the library was able to achieve on their security contract. Again, primarily because they were closed for a significant chunk of time. They made the request in 2021 if they could do that. With respect to any savings in their 2021 budget, if they could redirect those, council agreed. What we recognized in finance is that we did not have a similar agreement to allow the library to do that in 2020. And that's what this letter is about. It's simply saying, you've agreed to allow us to redirect funds in 2021. Could we have the same dispensation in 2020 to do the same?
Thank you for the extra context there. That's good for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Councillor Stoner?
Yeah, I had another question about another line item in the COVID restart. Appreciate the work that staff has done to consolidate some of the line items that were previously identified and raise some questions specifically around support for administration. But as I continue to read the project description, it still doesn't provide much clarity around what that money is actually going to. It says new training and new approaches to service and event delivery have been embraced, and this continues to take place. This funding will cover costs of moving to a sustainable model to accommodate the needs. Is that a staffing model? What is that? What are those dollars actually going to in that line item? So that's line 2 in the COVID recovery grant.
Ms. Arthurs, will you be responding to that? Or
I'm looking for volunteers. I'm not seeing any. I will take this on myself, Councillor Stoner, through the chair.
what page? Councillor Stoner, Ms. Arthurs wants to know what page it's on.
So that's page 50 of our package would be the description. Page 49 of our package is the BC COVID Restart Grant Summary, and it has line item 2, Council Admin Support, 177,000. And the description's on the following page. In previous discussions around this, it showed up as multiple line items. So one was administrative support, remote council meetings. There was legislative service improvements, and those individual line items tallied up to more than 177,000, and they seem to have been combined in this version of the presentation. And so I'm still just curious what that actually breaks out into, given that there's a shift in the dollar figure.
Yeah, Ms. Arthurs.
So the term administration here is not a department, it's actually overall administration of support for the programs that are identified in the line. So yes, a lot of it relates to staffing, it relates to our increased requirements around, especially if when we go back to in-person attendance at Brennan Park. We did combine and after talking with council and looking at the timing right now, where we're at with public meetings, our ability to go to 55, we know we were able to reduce the funds that were originally requested way back in the fall. And that adjustment has been made, which accounts for why the overall request is smaller. We still do have some technology improvements to make around our meetings when we challenged in the fall with some of the on-site technical aspects, and we're going to be improving them. They're included in this this amount as well.
So just to follow up and clarify on that, I think part of the clarification was made was that all the IT requests have now been dropped into line item 8. I think we've seen an increase in the cost there. So given what you just said, would those IT components fall under line item 8 or line item 2 still?
The IT is under line item 8, but the distance, the not distancing and the items that we're going to continue on for our council meetings are 2. Sorry, there is a disparity there, but we've included some of those other ones in. We won't be double dipping.
This gets away from us using overtime and trains additional people to support our in-person meetings. So
yeah, we'll have people who are only scheduled to do things not during our regular day if it's defined between 8 and 5.
I think just generally, if funds aren't used under these, they go into the provision. So we'll only spend what's needed. And a lot of the restart funds was based on a worst case scenario, whereas multiple people get sick and we have, you know, a skeleton crew. So I think it's important for the public to recognize that there is some room in there. It's a conservative estimate of what we need, and it would go back into the provision funds. Councillor, do you have a follow-up, Councillor Stoner? No, Councillor Pettingill.
Thank you. And this question is somewhat general to the COVID restart grant, although it comes up for me more in the context of the chamber ask, and I had originally thought it was 50,000 and was already a little bit challenged by that. But when I look through this as a whole, you know, I think the covered structures for parks are one area where we're trying to do things fundamentally different. But when I look at, you know, for all this money we're spending, what will be fundamentally changed in the way we do things? I'm not seeing a whole lot of that. It seems a lot of these things are things that we probably would have made sense to do eventually anyways. We're accelerating it because it's helpful during COVID, but a lot of it does seem to be sort of incremental improvements to some of the things we're already doing, as opposed to, you know, what's this new world look like? How are we seizing this opportunity to fundamentally do things in a better way, and to sort of rebuild back better? And so I'm trying to wrap my head around, are we putting enough of that restart money towards that fundamental shift as opposed to just coping with the current situation? And so trying to bring it back to the chamber piece, you know, are there any pushes or hooks in the grants, parameters around the grants, or the way we are approaching buy local, which is somewhat of an existing program, to really sort of frame it around helping those things that make that transition for us? And so grant, you know, is a requirement of the federal grant that it's how does, you know, what does your business look like post the emergency? And I'm just wondering if staff can speak to that, like how, I guess what I'm trying to grapple with is how are we getting to that new thing as opposed to just coping with the current situation? And maybe we're not.
So there's clear criteria about how we can spend the restart funds, and a lot of that is about covering our additional operating and losses from last year and this year. So that's critical as a starting point. And there was no requirement to build back better, but rather use the criteria we were given by the province to apply those in each community based on the needs we see in this community. One of the key things around the chamber request is that They are a not-for-profit that has slipped through the cracks. They are not eligible for pretty much any grants out there, and they've lost their revenue stream, which is events. Aside from membership, events is what drove their ability to deliver extra programs into the community, which is why they're approaching us. We have the ability to help them help our business community through these asks, which is why they're coming forward. But anything on this list is based on the provincial requirements, and they're the same requirements that we would have to provide to the community foundation in allotting the $50,000 that they are given, so that they remain on side with this grant as well. I don't know if that helps. I saw Miss Monday had her hand up, so I'll go to you, Miss Monday.
Thank you, Mayor Elliott. I essentially was going to say the same thing, is that the criteria really is all about primarily the coping. And certainly as we move forward as an organization ourselves, that we are looking at, embracing those silver linings and the learnings and building back better generally. But in terms of the BC Restart funds, for the most part, we are entirely following the criteria. There are elements, TTP, in terms of improving our recreation software, the covered structure, where it's built back better. But certainly that wasn't the main driver for these funds. Thank you.
You have a follow-up question, Councilor?
No, I'm just sort of digesting that, and I understand there's requirements, and I guess are we asking myself if we're, while dealing with the crisis that a lot of people are in, are we doing it in a way that not just helps them get over this crisis, but puts us in a better place for the future, or are we just dealing with the crisis? And I'm not trying to suggest that's an easy challenge or anything, but it's something that I've been wrestling with a bit as I've looked through this budget and some of the asks.
Okay. Ms. Monday.
Thank you. I think the answer to that respectfully is both. We are getting through this, and as we get through it, we are learning and improving. Is it going to be entirely transformational? Some of these issues, no. It's strictly dealing with extraordinary operational costs as we go through a pandemic, and appreciate the thought process. And certainly we are always looking, for continuous improvement, and we'll have that lens as we move forward.
I had a couple of just sort of housekeeping items. Item 59 under the special operating projects, which is the Squamish Valley Agricultural Plans. SLRD did pass a motion at the last meeting that it would be funded entirely by the Southern Tilt funds for this year, possibly next, but we still show that a $20,000 taxation hit this year. So I would like to have that cleaned up before the bylaw comes forward. Mr. Russell?
Elliott, through the chair, yeah, we can do that. I think that was just a timing issue. The meeting, SLRD meeting, occurred after the public engagement, and we just didn't pick up on the response confirmation from the RD in a timely manner and get that change made.
Okay, and then I also had a question. In our carry forward projects, we have one for the municipal hall HVAC replacements, and it's carrying forward $25,000. And then in our special operating projects, we have items 9 to 17 that are about sort of facilities projects, and one of those is municipal hall HVAC replacements. Which is a contingency in case any of them fail. But given that we've got $25,000, do we need additional monies in that 9 to 17 line item for this year? Because there's $145,000 in there for 2021. And I'm just wondering whether we actually need all what's in there for the HVAC for municipal hall. Given the carryover. Ms. Arthur?
So items 9 to 17, the municipal, you're right that there's a $25,000 emergency repair contingency carry forward. The item number 9 is separate from the contingency amount for the emergency repairs and its project unto itself. The rest of the items between 9 and 17 are not related to the HVAC unit.
I understand that.
There are other projects that they've been scoped as to the price. I'm sorry, I don't understand what the is.
Well, item 9 says that we have 10 rooftop units that are prone to failure, and that this budget, which we don't know how much it is, because it's been one thing, will ensure that we have minimal disruption to the provision of acceptable air quality to staff at municipal hall in case of failure. Any new rooftop units that are purchased can be moved or repurposed at a different building if municipal hall is demolished. And what I'm saying is, I don't know how much money is in there, and then we have a carry forward project of $25K for municipal hall HVAC replacements. So it seems like we have the same thing, one in carry forward, and then a new item. Like, do we need the whole thing? I guess I'm asking is how much is in item 9, because that's not transparent to us, in addition to the $25,000 that's being carried.
Hi, this is Mr. Russell. I would like to add description for number 9 is similar to the description for the carry forward. There is no money associated with number 9. Looking at extra details, which you of course won't see because they're buried in finance. The original number 9 item was moved. That number 9 item is now represented by the carry forward that is being shown. So although the description for number 9 should have been removed, it was not.
So then, Mr. Russell, there's nothing in the 145,000 in 2021 for HVAC units.
In the 145,000, there is not an amount associated with the HVAC. The HVAC is a carry forward. The carry forward is shown down below. So those are two separate amounts, two separate numbers. The description in number 9, which referred to the HVAC, was left in, and it was presented on the description page. That was an error.
Okay. Thank you for that. Oh, my other question is, in the restart funds, we have 338,000 set aside for covered structures and parks. And we have 110,000 budgeted for the covers and 108,000 budgeted for parklets. But then we have 60,000 budgeted in 2022 and 2023. And I'm wondering why we haven't just put that into the provision, why we've allotted it all here, even though we're talking about subsequent.
What occurred is we originally, this is Mr. Russell, we through the chair, we originally had planned to install one park cover per year for 3 years for a total of $180,000. We still intend to do that. We wanted full budget approval. We wanted that included in the current value, because if we are able to advance the timing of the build out of these park structures, we would like to be able to do more than one per year. We just recognize that in the first year, and this being a new process, not knowing exactly what resources we would have available for this, and also the time frame required to complete them, we weren't sure if we would be able to accomplish more than one per year. recognizing that we wanted to advance them as quickly as possible, we put the full funding in the first year so that it would all be approved at this point in time.
All right, so if we figure out we can do this quite quickly, we could spend it. We wouldn't have to wait till 2022.
I believe we can because we have included in the plan, we have all 3 years included or projects that cover that full amount, and we have requested funding for council from council's approval in the first year for the full amount. So if we are able to advance these park covers at in a more timely manner, we would be able to move forward faster.
Okay, and my last question to the CAO is, are we creating a small, I don't know, MOU or agreement with the community foundations so that they're very clear about what the criteria are for the COVID funds? Because they could, provide funding to, let's say, a not-for-profit that wants to upgrade some of their equipment to better vulnerable people, right? Like it could be an IT spend, but it helps reach new moms who are on maternity leave that they can't have gather right now. So I just want to make sure that we're not limiting them, but also making sure they're working within the box to keep this 50,000 on side with the COVID restart requirements.
Yes, in short, we will definitely be papering this to make sure that the criteria is met and that there's latitude in terms of to leverage something like the example you've just provided. So the short answer is yes.
Okay. Councilor Race, I saw your hand.
Sorry, was there another question?
Yep. Oh.
Said the question.
Oh, okay, sorry.
It's with respect to the capital projects draft and specifically item number 34, which is the Jimmy Judd Slough rewatering, which is shown as a $550,000 project funded by borrowing. My recollection of that was that it was somewhere over $1 million for that particular project. I don't recall the exact number, but also I think we saw an email just recently from staff, from Mr. Buxton, I think, indicating we received a grant for $750,000 towards that. And I just wondered if that could be clarified.
There's been no formal public announcement on that grant application.
Oh. Okay then.
Questions or comments on the items that have been requested in the restart funds? Okay, is there anyone in disagreement with the library piece? Speak now or hold your peace. Okay. Is there anyone who would not support the $50,000 to the community foundation? All right. The ask from the Chamber of Commerce. Are there any comments on that? Councilor Pettingill? And then
Yeah, and I appreciate some of the clarification. I do have some hesitation about the buy local piece, just because from my understanding, it is a piece that, as I understood, has long been in existence. And so what the changes or the differences isn't quite clear to me. And I think in light of my other comments too, if we are going to proceed with this, this is an area where if there's some component of these chamber grants to help incentivize that, think about what does your business look like going forward, that it's not just a sort of business as usual, but buy local. What's that other little piece is my only thought.
But you are supportive of the $100,000?
I think I would get there. Yeah, I mean, I do want to support local businesses in the chambers, but I think that one component is missing for me, and I would like to see it if we could.
Ms. Bundy?
Thank you. I just have Ms. Mulligan indicating that she has something that she could add to this part of the conversation.
Okay. I'll go to Councillor Stoner afterwards.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I just wanted to add that a large part, from my understanding from the Chamber, is around obviously local education, which is part of the Buy Local campaign that you've seen previously. But this one's really specific to our local businesses here in Squamish, where the other campaign has been much more generalized in terms of the overall Buy Local campaign for the province. And specifically, I think they were going to be looking at education from the extent of how can we get consumers, local consumers and residents to understand the value that buying local provides back into our economy, but specifically for Squamish. So this will be a tailored program as opposed to the provincial program that you're used to seeing from the Chamber as they've partnered in over the years. And I have to say that this will, I think, lead to sort of a Build Back Better concept in terms of how they execute this program. This past year, as you know, many of the winners in terms of the companies that have benefited from a retail service perspective have been big box stores. And obviously, there's been a huge uptick in terms of online purchases. But as you've seen over the Christmas period, and I think you'd hear from many local retailers, there was I would say, a keen or actual assertive opportunity on the part of residents to go after buying locally for their Christmas presents and so on. So I think that the Chamber realized that this would be a really good time to start having this conversation with our local residents about the importance of shopping locally and what it actually means. And because this unprecedented situation has arisen, it actually provides a very unique opportunity to have that conversation locally. So I think that it's about building that conversation at this time, and I think it's a really good opportunity for the Chamber to not only work with local residents and educating them and promoting local businesses, but also work with local businesses in terms of how they communicate what they have available in terms of their services to the local resident base here.
Thank you. Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, thank you. My hesitation was actually the opposite to Councillor Pettingill's. I'm fully supportive of the local Buy Local campaign, especially going into the potential upcoming tourism window that I think highlighting our local businesses will be really important to do to try and encourage more spending locally, both by residents as well as visitors alike. I'm more hesitant on the grant writing opportunity, and I think my hesitation there originally was whether this became assistance to business. I realize that it's open to all Squamish-based businesses, so not just the Chamber members, which I think is a great step. But I guess I'm hesitant on the value here. I know that there's lots of opportunities out there, but I am hesitant as to how this is really administered on a first come, first served basis and who will benefit from it. And also recognizing that I believe that we also have a potential outstanding request from Tourism Squamish, who did come present with a request in the 2020 budget, but also foresaw some potential budget shortfalls in 2021. I don't think we've seen anything come forward from them. So I'm also just cognizant of putting all dollars in one area here.
Ms. Mulligan, can you speak to that?
Sure. Through you, Chair. For the grant writing program, you are correct. It is open to all businesses in the community that hold a business license. It will be on a first come, first served basis. The province will be announcing up to 53 new programs, which includes funding. Many of those programs will be support for industry in the form of grants. We also are seeing from our federal counterparts that there are many funding opportunities that will be made available this year. One of the challenges or the key challenges that our local business community have been facing has been accessing enough capacity to even apply for grants. And as you know, with CERB and many of the other labor-related grants that have been made available throughout the pandemic thus far, it's been very challenging for local businesses to navigate the complexity and also the requirements that are part of these grants. We are weekly having just-in-time sessions just for economic development professionals, including chambers and local communities, to actually understand the components of these grants and make sense of them. So I can only imagine how challenging it is for a local small business to be able to navigate this. The purpose of this grant is to provide up to 5 hours of grant support writing to local businesses and hopefully get them to a home run where they're actually hitting send on their application. And while there's no certainty that they will receive this grant, this funding provides enough room for up to 100 businesses to apply if they were to max out on their 5 hours of time. So I think the likeliness of many of those businesses getting grants or receiving grants is high. To answer your other question, with respect to tourism funding, a grant was supplied in 2020 for a tourism campaign. In 2021, Economic Development will be coming forward with a funding recommendation to Council in March related to tourism funding for the year 2021.
Disappeared from my screen. Councillor Stoner, do you have a follow-up? Councillor Stoner?
I caught the first half of that response, but my network connection went dead for the second half.
Where did you lose Ms. Mulligan?
She was just starting to respond to my second question.
Okay. That the Economic Development Team is working with Tourism Squamish and will be bringing a funding proposal forward in March.
Got it. That's helpful. Thank you. And then just a quick follow-up on the first part. Is this not, we're basically proposing to fund a position that would be direct support to business. Is that not considered assistance to business?
We're providing a grant to a not-for-profit agency who will be hiring a person to run a project.
Great. Thank you for the clarity.
Councillor Anderson?
Thank you. I'd like to voice general support for the proposals in the Chamber's letter to us. Councillor Stoner has highlighted the grant writing opportunity section of the letter, and I think this does deserve highlighting. It occurs to me, and I helped by Ms. Mulligan's comments, but that small business is stressed, and I'm interested to hear about the participation levels in these orientation sessions. But my own kind of on the street take is that a lot of small businesses are simply overstressed to properly find orientation, and this guidance and opportunity should be valuable to them. But I also wanted to highlight the importance of the Buy Local program for the special circumstances of Squamish as a community with a substantial number of long distance commuters to the Lower Mainland. And I've become one of these during recent weeks. And I think that for many, and we'll call them citizens, but they're consumers, there's a discipline and attitude that is involved in making purchase choices. And reminders, I think, through the form of a Buy Local program can be useful. Education, I think, is important, but especially for our circumstances with so many people so easily picking up things or making purchases or arrangements in the North Shore or elsewhere. So I'm fully in support of the Chamber's requests in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mulligan?
And I just had some additional stats to add in with respect to the Buy Local campaign. So the video that was recently launched by the Chamber, which was about buying local, had over 30,000 views. Also Light Up Squamish, which was their Christmas or holiday promotion, had over 13,000 visits to their website and participation. And that their real goal with this is to enhance what's already been done in the BC Buy Local and localize it. So that's directly from the Executive Director, Louise Walker.
All right, I think I saw your hand, Councilor Herford.
I don't believe I raised mine, but I do have something to to add given the opportunity. I'll just voice my support for both of these initiatives. I think as an owner of a retail establishment, the buy local piece is so crucial, both with online purchases as well as Councilor Anderson said, a percentage of our population making the drive from the Lower Mainland to work and making it thus a little bit easier to make other buying choices. So that's very important. And the administrative burden for a grant application is something that that small businesses that I haven't run across in mine previously, and I've experienced firsthand. So I think both of these are very important and should be supported. And I'd like to thank the Chamber for bringing them forward. But I actually don't have a question. Thank you.
Councilor French?
Thank you, and I'll just voice my support for the Chamber of Commerce and coming forward with these initiatives. Small businesses, for the most part, are hurting big time, and I see these two programs as key to recovery for a number of small businesses in Squamish. So I fully support both of these initiatives.
Thank you. Councilor Pangil?
Yeah, two things. Given the comments about Tourism Squamish coming with an ask in March, will we have time at that point to consider all of these collectively? Or is this going to be an amendment to the financial plan, or what? How does the timing work there?
Can you repeat the question, Councilor Pangil?
Yes, thank you. If the Tourism Squamish ask is going to come to us in March, will we have an opportunity to sort of consider all these asks collectively, or is that sort of planned to be after budget approval and it would be a financial plan amendment at that point, or how does the timing work on these?
It's a separate item, but I believe it's captured in Ms. Mulligan's economic development budget.
Oh, so it's already in. Okay. Okay. The other item, I know a lot of the Chamber's current members are other not-for-profits, and if the grant writing, and I see a lot of value in that program, but if it's only available to those with a business license, will not-for-profits be eligible for similar sorts of support and assistance through the Community Foundation grant, or is there any option or opportunity there?
Yep, it's not part of the $50,000 grant to the community foundation. They're using it to grant out to other organizations, not just on like the Chamber.
Okay, I guess a question for us is, do we feel it's important to limit that grant to businesses through the Chamber, or if they feel it's useful to support some of their not-for-profit members, would we be okay with that? I personally, there might be some significant value in that, but
it's not the ask that's come forward, Council. All right, any final opportunities for any amendments or changes to the budget? I'm hearing support for the items that are in the BC Restart grants. Would like to send Mr. Russell off with the direction to bring back the bylaw for 3 readings next week. So if there's no further changes, then that's the direction we're going. Councilor Race.
It wasn't changed, but did you capture the request from the library? I don't think we had a poll on that.
I did that one first.
No.
About the chamber.
Okay.
Okay. Do you need a motion, Mr. Russell, or I haven't heard any motions changing the budget, so I'm assuming that it stands, the capital plan, the special projects. That's previous slides.
I'm gonna, through the chair, I'm gonna leave the motioning up to the councillors. If they feel it would be advantageous to present a motion, we will certainly accept it, and otherwise we can proceed. I do want to confirm that there is direction to reduce the $20,000 tax support for Squamish Valley agricultural.
Yes. Councillor Stoner and I can confirm that we voted on it at SLRD, and it is being funded through a mechanism this year.
Okay. Based on what I've heard, we will produce a financial plan bylaw and present it next week.
All right, Mr. Buxton, you popped up. Did you have something you wanted to add?
Yes, I just wanted to confirm and offer Councillor Rice a little bit of an apology here, is that that grant has actually been, we weren't sure, but it has been announced, so we can adjust the grant funding on that Jimmy just through one rewarding project. So
that moves it out of borrowing and into grant.
yes.
Phew, you're out of hot water now, Candice. Did I see any other hands? All right. So I move that staff bring back our 2021 to 2025 financial plan for readings at the next special business meeting. Their secondary. Seconded by Councillor Stoner. Any comments? We'll save them all for next week. I'll call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Russell.
Thank you.
Okay, a little bit behind schedule, but let's take a 10-minute recess and come back at 2:30 and close. So before we go there, motion to close. By Councillor Stoner, seconded by Councillor Race. Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll come back on the other.